All right. Well, all right. Here we are. As far as we can tell, this is live,
You're
right?
you're on right now.
There you go. Okay. Um, we're holding the. Some people have already got this, right?
Yes.
Some people have already received this, but some of you are going to receive this, and I'm I'm doing this movement, and you may not know what you're looking at. You may think, what is going on with that cover? Well, this cover is this image, this normal image from the Soft Bulletin, but we've sort of um, cut it into six different um, slices. And this is I don't know if you're familiar with what is known as this lenticular. It's like a type of lens. It's sort of a plastic sheet, but it has these slices on it. And as you move it, you're seeing these different slices kind of do this strange animation. And so it's really spectacular. Um, Not very many album covers have been done in this way. The Rolling Stones' Satanic Majesty's Request was a very famous one, and I think that's probably where we got a little bit of our inspiration. Our manager Scott Booker probably has mentioned that to us every chance that we get. Can we do a lenticular album cover? But I have to say, I think this is just turned out spectacular. This is one of the this is one of those elements in the world where you can't see it before it's made. You know, there's so many things now that you are making on a computer, and you're just seeing it as you're making it, and everybody's going to see the same thing. But this is a real thing that has to be manufactured, and so it's a little bit of a leap into the unknown. And when you get to hold it in your hand and do what I'm doing here, it's just spectacular. So I'm going to open up this package. You can see it's really a well done, uh, cool looking package. This is the print. This isn't the back. This is the print. The way the print sits in here. So I'm going to open this up, and you're gonna see all the stuff that comes in it. So, I mean, it's not tons of stuff, but it's stuff related to the original um, release of the Soft Bulletin, and so you get this cool little. Don't you love these sorts of details? Nice little bookend thing there. This is the lenticular, um, redoing of that classic album cover. It's got its own sleeve here. I don't know if you can tell it's in its own plastic sleeve. A lot of times these lenticular things have ridges on them, but I'm feeling this, and it's smooth like a strange thick photograph, but it does this spectacular. That movement is just spectacular. Oh man, you're gonna want this. You're gonna want this. If you don't have this, you're gonna want this. Even if you have it, maybe you're gonna want to get it 5 or 6 different times, because that is just spectacular. I want 5 or 6 of them. I know that. Yeah. Okay. So there's that part. Here is the classic album cover. You can see on it. You can see it's that thing, but it's all been blown up, and just a lot of good stuff there. Classic album cover. This back. This is I don't know if this is the same back that was we had when we released it as a double vinyl the first time. I can't quite remember.
I think so.
There you go. But it's got a good. It really does feel good. I really love this vinyl me please indented shiny emblem there. Um, the inside of it has these inserts that came with the original um, CD. I think. I don't think, and in 1999 we didn't put it out on vinyl. No, we were probably just lucky that it came out on CD. And so it's a picture of Stephen. He was pointing out that his tooth was rotting there, and if you see Stephen in real life, you'll notice that yeah, he's had teeth that had to come out, and he's had them replaced with fake teeth now. But on this particular photo shoot, he was pointing out that that tooth is rotten, and you can see me back there, kind of like, oh man, what can you do? Yeah, yeah. Michael Ivans's head, I know for a fact, has been photoshopped on there. I don't know if you can tell, but you can tell he's kind of floating with his own special shadow and stuff there. It's a picture we did long time ago, and all this is still the original stuff that came in that original CD package. Um, this vinyl, it's another element that you can't really be absolutely positive what it's going to look like until you see it. Um, and these colors of the labels, I mean, all these things, for me, they really are where the love is. It has a lot of great details, great specific coloring that the Soft Bulletin had. All these little things are really, really well done. Let me get to the second one here. This is another picture, photos taken from our Race for the Prize. There's a Race for the Prize video shoot. Yeah,
Down Fairgrounds.
yeah, long time ago. Yeah. Let's see this vinyl, the color of the vinyl in here. I mean, it's just spectacular. I'm not sure what we're calling this color, but it's kind of um, like salad dressing or something, kind of like French, like yeah, it's wonderful, or ice cream or something. Yeah, it's not quite mustard. I've seen the word mustard. This feels like more mustard in here, but all these are really really well done. Very pleased about the way all that has turned out. You'll be pleased when you get it if you haven't already got it. So yeah, all this is great. This cover image was an image that I saw, I believe it ran in a Life magazine. I don't know if people will remember what Life magazine is, but back in the 60s, early 70s, I think my mother probably was getting a subscription to this magazine, and I don't know if it came out every month. It seemed like it came out, every month or every couple of months or something. But it was a great. Um, uh, uh, what I liked about it is always it was mostly photographs, and then it told you these little bit of current event stories. And I don't remember seeing this when it came out. I saw it in an edition of Life magazine that was kind of a best of. So I didn't see it originally when it came out. I think it was in 1967 or 1968. This photo ran with a story about, I think it was the electric Kool-Aid acid test, which I didn't have any idea about that when I saw it in a later version of the magazine. It was sort of taken away from the original story, and this image on its own was there. And I don't think I ever bothered to read about what it was from. I just thought it was a stunning image. The original one is it's in black and white, and of course we've added this element of color and a little bit more high contrast to it. But to me, it still is just a stunning, strange. There's something hinting at this you looking at yourself or seeing yourself in the other. There's something about this guy contemplating his own strange shadow, and there's just something powerful about it. And we are very lucky that we wanted the image, we wanted to use the image, and we were lucky enough to get a hold of the photographer Lawrence Schiller. He's a very colorful, interesting guy. At the time that we were talking to him about him allowing us to use this photo on our album cover, he was writing a book about the O.J. Simpson trial. He was actually interviewing O.J. Simpson in jail. So he's a very interesting guy. If you get a chance, you can Google him and see his whole career is strange. But little by little, I've seen he does gallery shows where he's showing his older photographs, and little by little, this image has become one of the selling, one of the things that they'll put in the advertisements for his shows. So I feel really, really lucky and very connected, and very much, he and I, somehow our lives have crossed, and this image seems like it'll probably live forever now. But now that's associated with our album, it's just so, oh, it's just so timeless. So I think we've covered all the packaging part of it, which is lovely. I mean, when I designed this way back in the day with George Salisbury, we were very meticulous about this font size and this font color, and how it looked like a movie from the 1970s or something. We were very particular about all this stuff, and we were very glad to have a lot of information to kind of squish together. I think that's always the secret. So, we're putting everybody's name on there that we possibly can, because we like the way we're stacking all that up. It sort of looked arty and important or something. And this little running guy, he's the only other image, this sort of landscape with this running guy. I mean, I don't really remember why I came up with the running guy, but I like the idea of the race for the prize, man in the future, sort of running or whatever. That's what we've turned into this print. So it's the same running guy that you see on the back here, but then he's in a different sort of color palette. And this image was first used as the
Single art.
the single for race for the prize when it was released. I think it was released in England. Yeah. And it said, it probably said race for the prize, the flaming lips and stuff like that. But that running man, that sort of disintegrating, high contrast running man, is the only other image associated really with the Soft Bulletin. And so it's just got the two things. And I always struggled with that. I after the record came out, there's always a little bit of a need for more stuff, more images and more, more covers and more posters and things like that. And as wonderful as these images are, the front of that and the back, I always struggled with more of them. And you can see where this is really just a kind of, it's the same sort of stuff, reusing, repurposing or whatever. So, yeah. But now that it's 20 years afterwards, I'm sort of glad that I didn't think of anything else. So these things sort of really stick in your mind. And this it's a matte sort of finish. It's not shiny. It's got a really great feel to it. On the back, it says, the artwork by Coyne. It's really wonderful. So lots of great feeling stuff, a lot of great looking stuff, a lot of well printed stuff, a lot of love put into it. And when you get it, I think you'll have all that. You'll be able to feel all that stuff that's in there. So well done, whoever the people are responsible for making that go through all that stuff and come out that great. Vinyl Me Please. Well done. Yeah. And but that, and people don't realize how hard that is to do. It's a lot of stuff to come together, a lot of ideas and all that stuff. So all right, I'm glad it's here. So I think we're going to begin with some of the questions that we've sort of picked from the bunches of questions that are happening right now. So we'll start as soon as we can. I hope it's interesting.
All right. So Kevin asked.
Kevin. Does Kevin have a last name?
No.
All right. It's just Kevin. Yeah.
Kevin
on the internet.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
He says, what do you remember of the recording process of the Soft Bulletin? Was there ever a moment of, wow, we're really creating something special here?
Right. Well, Kevin, that's a good question. I mean, I think I remember a lot of it. I mean, oftentimes when we're speaking about things that happened, 20 years ago or 30 years ago, as long as Stephen was there, Stephen he doesn't have a photographic memory, but he does have a very, very good memory for days and dates and this, recording this song on this day. Steven isn't with me right now, so he would be able to trigger some more things. But yeah, and there were a lot of times when we would be making the Soft Bulletin. I remember Race for the Prize, the very first song on the Soft Bulletin, Race for the Prize, was a song that we were attempting to put on the Zyreka record. Now, the Zyreka record is the four, back then there was no vinyl me please. There was no, people weren't doing things on vinyl. In the late 90s, everybody was doing things on CD. So Zyreka is the 4 CD set that we put out, designed to be played on 4 different CD players. I know it's absurd. I would admit that now that that's a ridiculous concept, but I think that's what the Flaming Lips are about. The Flaming Lips are doing something that no one else would think to do, and if they would think to do it, they'd probably think, "Oh, that's ridiculous. Why do we do it?" But so Race for the Prize was at first considered to be one of these songs that we were going to divide up amongst these 4 CDs, and we tried it a lot, and it didn't work very well. And this is how we began to make the Soft Bulletin. This Zyreka record comes out in 1997, and really just a couple of years later, we've got this insane record, the Soft Bulletin, that we were making all along, and the songs would often be the rejects from the 4 CD behemoth, and we would say, well, that one doesn't work very well, and we'd throw it to the side. And we knew that we loved these things as songs. We knew we'd love them as productions. But I think that we were trying to get our minds around this bigger, crazier production. I think it really opened our minds, really blew our minds, wide open into a way of thinking about expanding our music, expanding the sounds, expanding the whole atmosphere of what we were doing. And Race for the Prize would have been one of those, still when we hear it now, can't quite figure out how it sounds so spectacular. That drum sound that opens the track, it's a Steven, it's a trademark Steven beat with this one little turnaround that is so perfectly a signature thing to do it has such a uniqueness to the song. But the sound of it was even elusive to us. As soon as we recorded Race for the Prize, we wanted to immediately do 2 or 3 other songs with that same sound. And even though it was the same drum kit, the same drummer and the same microphones in the same room with the same producer, Dave Fridman, everything being virtually, the same, we could never get this same crazy dynamic sound. We could never get it again. And so it's, a lot of times when we're making music, there's what you're trying to do, and you just are always thinking some lucky, spectacular thing is going to happen while you're just doing what you're calling your work. You've got to be in there working away at it. And that even that very initial sound of those drums on the song Race for the Prize still is a thrilling. I say it's an accident, but we have Dave Fridman. He's a master recorder. He's a master engineer, master producer in his own studio. So it's built for this fantastic stuff. Magnificent drummer. Steven's probably the greatest living drummer. He's just such a great, unique drummer. So a lot of great things, but still that sound is so elusive and so magical and so perfect. And yes, it would happen all the time. But there would also be a lot of times where we would doubt that it is really working. And I think that's the hardest part of anything, is that you do have these times where you feel like, man, this is really working. Um, but then you have times where you feel like it's not working, and you don't, there's always that flow in and out of being, feeling really good about it and then feeling very insecure about it. It's impossible to work through things. We found that it's best, for us anyway. I don't know if it's best for everybody, but just to be working on stuff all the time. And so I think that's why working on this Zyreka record so intensely, and it's such an impossible record that we were making, allowed us to kind of just be doing so much stuff that we didn't get too hung up on one particular thing, one particular sound, one particular song. And we would go back and listen to something like Race for the Prize after we had felt good about it and felt insecure about it and felt bored with it and felt excited about it 1,000 different times. And then we'd go back and listen to it. We'd be like, oh man, this is great. Why are we trying to change it? Why do we keep feeling like this? So, that your mind is always doing that. You're never, ever really satisfied. I think it takes a long, long time. It's taken a long time for me to just sort of be like, whatever it is, especially with music like that's old enough, like the Soft Bulletin recordings, I really don't remember exactly what we were trying to do and what we failed at and what worked and what didn't work. Now I hear it, and I'm oftentimes going, man, this is a really this is a really great record. Whoever made this record, man, they really nailed it. I know it's us, and I remember doing some of it, but some of it is just so, the little details and little nuances and all that are just, they're just magic, and I feel very lucky that we saw it through. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. Long answer. Sorry about that.
Well, Carl has a long question, which I'm going to ask here real quick. It says, I saw your band live during the Soft Bulletin tour, and it was fantastic.
Right.
For that tour, you offered audience members headsets.
We did.
That tuned into a local radio frequency, and it played. This is what he's saying.
Yeah.
It played additional audio music that accompanied your live songs.
Right.
Have you thought about making a new mix of the Soft Bulletin that incorporates that additional audio/music into the mix?
Right. And Carl, I can understand where you could have thought that there was additional music in there because, what we were playing on stage maybe sounded different in those headphones, but it wasn't additional music. It was just the same mix of what we were playing on stage, which would have been back in 1999, if that's when you saw us. It would have been a combination of us playing tracks and live stuff all jumbled together. And those headphone concerts were kind of I don't know. I don't know why we always have to have some manifesto of like, it's got to be 1,000% originally the original, or the Flaming Lips would just feel like they're not doing enough for the world. And so we were playing tracks. We would trigger tracks, and Stephen would play drums along with these tracks. He'd play guitar and piano. I'd be playing gongs and singing, pouring blood in my head. Michael would be playing occasionally guitar, but playing, still a lot of bass. But it wasn't additional tracks. So I think your idea that we would have additional tracks, that's not real. I understand why you could think that there were additional tracks, because it could sound quite differently in the headphones. And I remember the idea that you could be wearing the headphones and you could walk around, and that's the beauty of the headphones. They always stay on your ears, so it wouldn't matter where you walked around. The sound would, sort of get better or worse depending on where you were. But as that tour went on, we were playing sometimes bigger places, and this is not scientific, but it's a little bit of a way of telling, sound travels at 1,100 feet per second. So it's quite slow when you think about the speed of light, which is, it's such an immediate thing. Sound is not very immediate, And so we started to play places where this sound that we're making on stage and the sound that you're hearing in your headphones would start to get separated a little bit. And then if you walked to the end of the club, and sometimes the bathrooms would be at the very end of the other part of the club, what you're hearing in the headphones and the sound that would be coming off the stage, they would get a little bit out of sync. And I think that was fascinating to a lot of people as well, because you could kind of walk in and out of that being connected. So there's a lot of crazy things about giving people headphones to listen to at a concert. A lot of bad things, a lot of good things, just a lot of unique things. And we only did it, for that first 6 or 7 months of touring around with the Soft Bulletin. But it was wonderful. And the headphones weren't very hi-fi. They were sort of headphones that were kind of slightly throwaway, but still pretty great experience. The radio station was a little radio station that we would just carry with us. I know that's hard to imagine, but yeah, it's just a little thing that we made, and we'd just set it up, and there'd be an antenna in the place that we're playing. And if you were in the range of the antenna, which could be quite far, you could pick it up sometimes miles and miles away from where we were playing, and we could pick up other radio stations with our antenna as well. It was a pretty interesting year when we did that. So yeah, good question. Thank you, Carl.
So Al is asking, are there any songs on the Soft Bulletin that are your favorite to perform live?
Well, that's a good question, Al. The song Race for the Prize, we've probably played it almost every night that we've played since it's come out. And the idea of what's a favorite and what isn't, it's sort of we just know it so well. And it probably is one of our favorites because it just absolutely works for the audience. It works. It's like it's the first song that we play. It's almost always the first song that we play when we're doing a concert. And if you are a big fan of the Flaming Lips and you know this song, I think we do it really well. I mean, we really got the dynamics and the sounds and the flow of it and the visuals that go along with it. I think because we've been playing it for 20 years, I think it's taken it little by little, it's gotten to where it's really a superb blammo of a beginning of the show. And I really love the way that we've been doing the song Waiting for Superman. The way we've been doing it probably for the past, probably 5 or 6 years anyway, is just Stephen and I, and we sort of take it into just an unstructured, Stephen sort of following my singing. He's sort of playing to the way I'm singing or something. And I think that has helped that song feel more fragile and more emotional. And so in that sense, a song like that, when we break it down and do it that way, it's more difficult to do live because you really do have to kind of be absorbed in it. There's not all this flow and there's not all these visuals going along with it. So there's a couple for sure that we love to play. We love to play almost everything that we do. There's not really a song in our set that we don't like. We're not really, I don't know. There's some bands I think would say that about playing a song over and over and over, but we're lucky, we don't play so many concerts in a row that you get burned out on things. Virtually every show that we play is like, oh wow, here we are. We get to play here tonight. It's always kind of exciting for us. So all the songs are great to play.
Someone has a question about the Clouds Taste Metallic.
Here we go. So we have the Clouds Taste Metallic is also now part of the Vinyl Me Please thing. Should I open it and see what color the vinyl is on this? Yeah. All this I think it just has a good feel to it. Oh man. Oh, here we go. This has been on a lot of different colors of vinyl, but that I have to say, oh, that is really juicy. That is really a good color, and that green and orange on the label. Um, some nice subtle differences between the orange on the label and the orange in the vinyl. A lot of good stuff going on there. So that's great. Um, this funny packaging again. Um, you'll notice if you get this, you'll notice that it looks like there is some scotch tape holding this photo onto this orange thing here. And so this was done way back in the day where we really did put um, scotch tape on the photograph. But then as soon as we did that in real life, these sort of apps would come along and you could make things look like you're putting tape on things. And so some of it is just ridiculous classic flaming lip stuff. Some of the scotch tape is real, and then some of the scotch tape is fake. And we don't really have any qualms about what's authentic and what isn't. Authentic is just um, doing what you like. That's what I think. So yeah, Cloud Stays Metallic. Yeah.
Levi had a question about Clouds Taste Metallic.
Okay.
It says the song titles on Clouds Taste Metallic conjure some of the most vivid images of any track list I've ever seen. What inspires choices that include words like hospital ship, fetus, needles, head wound, giraffe, Brainville, headache, smile, watermelon, gun, yoke, lightning, postman, Christmas, zoo, evil, and bad days, as opposed to more typical abstract and vague song lyrics?
Well, I'll take all that as a great compliment. I mean, sometimes I do think that song titles are such a great opportunity to music. Its power is in that it's kind of abstract. You're kind of taking from it kind of whatever you think it means. And with song titles, I mean, sometimes song titles are obvious. I think the song title like this here, Giraffe, I think it's just part of the, it's just part of the song. So it seems like an obvious choice. Or When You Smile, that's just part of the song. But some of them, like The Abandoned Hospital Ship, I think that I would kind of sometimes I would have a title and a vibe in mind for what the song could be. And it would just sort of help us make up the song. So it really comes about any kind of way that you get something that makes you pursue, finishing it or filling it out or connecting a story to it. So sometimes, we have a song and then we put a title to it. So I think that's what happened with psychiatric exploration of the fetus with needles. I think the song just implied something sinister and something scientific, but something gentle and something unknown and something kind of disgusting, but something kind of wonderful. A lot of things about it, but nothing, never hinting at just one thing. And I think a lot of the stuff on Clouds Taste Metallic is like that. I think even the title Clouds Taste Metallic is, it's sort of based in descriptive reality, but it's also evoking something that maybe only, by listening to the music, you get that. I don't know. Some of it you don't really know what its meaning is. You just know as long as you're saying it and you're listening to it, it has a hold on you. But I don't know. I think I'm one of the luckiest songwriters ever, because I kind of get to just do what I like, and I get to title a song whatever I kind of like. And sometimes I have really, 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 really long song titles. And even just that in and of itself is a good, ridiculous, fun, creative adventure. All right, next question.
Cool.
Yeah.
So Tim asked, I know that you don't believe in guilty pleasures when it comes to music, but what new acts do you currently dig that might surprise some people?
Oh, I don't really know that many new acts. I mean, just last night we went to see Billie Eilish. She's playing a big concert in Tulsa. But I don't know if that would surprise anybody. I don't know if that would. I mean, I think a lot of people love Billie Eilish, and I mean, obviously there were 25,000 people at the show. A lot of them were 12-year-old girls screaming. But that doesn't mean that her music isn't great, isn't fun to listen to, and isn't interesting. So I don't know. I mean, I don't know if there would be a group that I could go to see that people would think, oh my gosh, I can't believe that you like them. I mean, I think once we made our bond with Miley Cyrus, I don't think there wouldn't be much that would surprise anybody anymore. I mean, and we truly do love Miley, and we still love the idea that we made that Miley Cyrus and the Dead Pets record together, and you know, and it'll stand for the rest of time as this moment, um, and I think that's part of what would make being in the Flaming Lips such an interesting creative adventure, that you're not doing the same thing, day after day after day after day. We're always looking for new things, new collaborators. I mean, even the King's Mouth record, and having Mick Jones on there, I would never have thought that would be possible. It was just such a whim of an idea, and for it to come true, and to have someone like Mick Jones saying these ridiculous, um, little pieces of this fable or his parable, whatever it is, still unbelievable to us. So it can go any way that opportunities come up, and so I don't know who will collaborate with next, but we're always trying. I think we're trying to get Casey Musgraves to be a guest on one of our brand new songs. I don't know if she'll do it, but we're gonna we're gonna see.
So Kevin asked,
Kevin, hello, Kevin. There's another Kevin. The same Kevin.
no, I don't, well, maybe, I don't know.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
like this though. Dear Wayne, are you a record collector or vinyl enthusiast? All of your own band's output suggests a love for the actual physical object of the record. If so, what would be your top 10? I know we all hate top 10, but what are your top prized records?
Well, I'm not really a collector in that way. I mean, when I was growing up, when I was very young, there was only vinyl. And so there's probably something deep, deep in my subconscious that loves that sound and that connection and that thing where a needle is going over, scratched up, plastic. I know it's vinyl, but it's just a strange thing, and I like that the records have covers and you can hold them. I mean, the way I was even holding this, it's like it's this big thing or whatever. But I think that's just because that's my experience from when I was young, and you would hold this and you would dream about all the stuff. But I'm not precious about any of it. I love the idea that you can have things that are big and feel wonderful. And I love that vinyl does have a special, organic thuddiness to it that you can't get really with anything else. Um, but I also love that I can just have music on my phone, and I can just listen to it in the lobby of the. We were at a doctor's appointment this morning, and you have 10 minutes. You can listen to a little song on your phone. I mean, I love music, so I don't really care how I get it, really. I think listening to it is more important than the way you listen to it. But I love all the formats. I mean, whenever we get to make a new album and make a new, design new things or whatever, I love all of it. I embrace all of it. But I do think I probably started, so far back. I remember making our very first album cover, much like I did the last album cover. So the very first album cover, I made it. I had photographs blown up, and I cut them out and I taped them on right there at in my kitchen table, just at my apartment at the time in 1983. And then the last album cover for the King's Mouth, I did again, just at my kitchen table. Of course, now you can run it through computers, you can recolorize it, resize it, and all that. But a lot of it was just done at my kitchen table with scissors and paints and just doing the same old thing. So yeah. So but not overly precious about any of it. I'm glad that the Flaming Lips just get to do everything all the time.
Um,
The top 10 I wouldn't know, like I wouldn't have a top 10 vinyl. I mean, my favorite vinyl ever is a Tom Jones record that my mother, you know, had from the mid 60s, and it was played so much, not just by her, but by all of us. We only had 5 or 6 records in the house. And, this Tom Jones record would be one of them. We would just play these records all the time, all the time, all the time. And I never realized how scratched up they got until we played this song at my mother's funeral. It was one of her favorite songs, and I knew that all of us in the family would have great memories and visions of her when this Tom Jones song played. But we went. This is in 2004, and so we went to the CD version of the song, and I listened to it and I thought, well, this isn't the same song. This isn't the song I'm thinking of. And the more I listened, I was like, oh, I think it's the song. But I was so used to hearing my mother's by now completely destroyed vinyl that we ended up. Then back then, this wasn't that easy to do. We ended up recording from the album, my mother's original album, scratches and all, putting it on this playlist that we played at the sort of ceremony after her funeral. And so the scratches and the blur and the haze and all that distortion, to me, that's part of the beauty of, I think, of vinyl records, because they're like film. The more you play them, they're being destroyed. But it's a great destroyed. It's a great otherworldly sound. It's like it's the only thing in the world that is like that. I mean, nowadays you can play a song that you've downloaded from iTunes. You can play it a million times if you want, and it's never going to change, really. You'll change, but it won't change. But with records, the more you play them, the more otherworldly I think they became. They started to sound like some sort of doomsday transmission from World War One or something, like they're being transmitted from another world. And I don't know, I still hear music like that occasionally when you're pumping gas at a little stop and go. And now everybody has a speaker out there that's been beat up by the sun and the snow and everything, but it still plays music, and it's the tinniest, most distorted thing ever. And there's oftentimes I'll stand there and listen to a song while I'm pumping gas. It's like, oh, it's amazing. So yeah.
Mike asks, how has becoming a father and likely losing sleep affected your creative process?
Well, that is a good question. I personally haven't lost that much sleep because our little baby Bloom, his name is Bloom, he's just a really pleasant little human. And so he sleeps a lot. His mother likes to sleep, and his father, who's me, I like to sleep. So I think he's got a little bit of our personality about him, even though he's just a couple of months old. And I think we're just very lucky that he's not been sick or anything like that would cause him to have some horrible sleep pattern or whatever. But we did just come back from Australia, and that definitely put a zap on all of our schedules, his included. And so but in the way that I think it changes your creativity, I think it probably, for me, I feel like it's a little bit like a meditation, spending time with this baby. And it's such an old, all your senses are engaged because he's so wonderful and beautiful and funny and precious and all these things. It's almost like it obliterates everything else in your mind, which is kind of what meditation is trying to do, just to get you to another, get this stuff out of your mind and get connected to your sort of, your body and all these other things. I think it, for me, I feel like it kind of does that. I've tried to be able to sort of focus on whatever it is that I'm doing, and then knowing that you have to turn off that focus and focus on something else. I've been trying to be more aware of that anyway, because being creative isn't isn't for me. It's not like I don't want to go up to the top of the mountain and sit there alone and think of things for 5 years. That, to me, that's not being creative. Creative is doing things, making things, trying things. And that means always sort of jumping around from one thing to the next. And I think that's, these things in your life can be the same way. It's jumping from one thing. This is important. Do this now. Knowing what's important, knowing that this time that you have is important, making the time, all those things are part of being creative. And I think having this little human that is, needs your love and needs your attention and all that. I think it's a great um, distraction away from these sometimes petty, obsessive things that can be part of your creative day. You can really obsess about something that's not very important at all. And you leave it for a little bit. Sometimes you come back and you say, why do we care about this silly thing? Why are we working so hard on this silly thing? And it allows you just to move on. So for me, I think it's been a great um, new way of doing things, which I welcome.
Speaking of the household, someone asked, Matt asked, I want to know about the day the Google Maps car drove by your house collecting street view data, and there were people in a bathtub on the front lawn.
Right.
Is that just run of the mill, normal Wednesday level stuff for the Coyne household?
Well, I mean, no, but it would be when it would be around Halloween. And so that was probably a day or two before Halloween of whatever that year that is, whatever year that they were driving through the neighborhood. And it was just random, just the most random thing ever. No one ever came up to us and said, hey, Google's going to be driving down the street, maybe do something absurd and be saying, no, we never knew it happened. We just happened to be out there building this. I think I've seen it a couple of times now. I think we're building, it was called blobs in the bathtub. And so around my house, I had some of these standing iron uh, bathtubs, and I was looking for an excuse to kind of put something out on that part of the lawn for Halloween. I think they caught us. We had about half of it set up. Um, and back then, we would do pretty elaborate Halloween things. I was mostly doing these things for the kids in my neighborhood, and they would, all the little kids that didn't have anything else to do, would sort of all help us do all the stuff. Um, and it was quite fun. And we would get, we'd get pretty elaborate about, lights and extension cords and special effects and smoke machines and strobe lights and all these great things. Um, but little by little, I think it became more of just an attraction for people to come and take pictures with the guy from the Flaming Lips. Which in the beginning it didn't start out like that. In the beginning, I was just a guy in the neighborhood doing something fun for all the neighborhood kids. But then it turned into everybody would drive from all parts of the city to come to our thing, and that part of it I didn't like as much. So we don't do a big elaborate thing as much now, but we did back then, and we quite liked it. And I'm glad we were captured forever on the the Google Maps. It's pretty funny. There's only a handful of people that are on there, and I'm one of them. Yeah, yeah. So it pays to do things in your front yard. Yeah.
So Lloyd asks, speaking of the King's Mouth, Wayne, where do you or have you drawn inspiration for your visual and experiential art over the years? Can you take us into the mind of your creative process for something like the King's Mouth?
Well, the creative process, I don't think there's not really a process for me. Um, I just know that I'm going to get turned on to something, and I'm going to want to start to do it. And in the way that the Flaming Lips work, we are always doing music. We're always writing songs. We're always, creating sounds. We're always, and but part of it is that you're going to finish these things. It's not just a sketch. It's not just a half of a song. All these things are building up to something, and I think that's probably where my process, I think, probably works the best, is that I want it to be something. It's not, I'm not just going to, it's not just a song. It's going to have a title. It's going to have an identity. It's going to have pictures that go with it. We're going to make videos. All these things are part of, like, I don't know why, but I like the whole story of it. And I like that it's a collaboration. A lot of times people think that art is kind of made by some weirdo sitting in the corner, by himself. But it's not that way for me. I mean, I like collaborating with Steven. I like collaborating with Dave Friedman. I like collaborating with Dennis, the engineer I work with at my house. Because they're creative too. And I think music especially benefits from this type of collaboration because it's happening right there in front of you. But doing it is really what it is. It's not thinking about it. It's not dreaming about it. It's not planning about it. It's doing it. And, there's a lot of ways that you can, painting can be like that. You can paint something, you can do it. And if it flows good enough, at any one time, some great things happen and some boring things happen and some unwanted things happen and some wanted things happen. And then I just sort of start to filter those out, and I just go in phases and phases. But I do keep working on them, and I like to finish things. And so, I'm hardly ever doing anything that is just going to sit there and something's not going to come of it. I think that helps you make stuff. It puts it out into the world. But I don't know. I mean, I always just say that, I don't think being creative it's not necessarily a good thing. I think it can be a good thing, but I know that I can be intense. I know I can be obsessive, and I know being creative just has no boundaries. It has no direction. And so if I get turned on to something, I want to start to do something, I know I can be, yeah, I can be a pain. I just want to, I get to where I have to do these things. And I think if you're creative, nothing can stop you. It doesn't mean that it's going to be great. And it doesn't mean it's going to be good. But that's sort of the relentlessness of a creative person. But if you're not creative, I don't think anything can make you creative. It's just one of those desires that you can never satisfy. As you're creating one thing, it shines a light and illuminates other things that suddenly you start to want to be creative about. It's just an endless thing. And yeah, but I don't know. I don't know what the process is other than just doing stuff that you like and hoping you get away with it.
So Lewis asks, what's your reaction when watching a movie or a show and suddenly a Flaming Lips song starts in the background? Is there a scene that you think has suited perfectly with a Flaming Lips song?
Right. Well, it doesn't happen that often. I mean, oftentimes, if a Flaming Lips song is in a show or a movie or something, we would just go fast forward as quickly as we could right to our spot and say, yeah, there's our song or whatever. But I do remember when the I think the very first time we had a song in a big movie where you could go and see it at the theaters was when Bad Days was used in the Batman Forever movie, and it was a Jim was Jim Carrey was still, one of the biggest stars in the world, and he was the Joker, I think.
He was a Riddler.
Riddler, there you go. Yeah, Riddler, that suits him for sure. And I don't think at the time we were judging whether it was done well or whether it worked for the movie or if it did anything other than it was just so thrilling to be sitting in the theater and they're playing your music in this insanely giant movie. And Jim Carrey is the Riddler jumping around while your music is playing in the background. That's utterly life-changing, I mean, until that happens to you, you just don't really get that thrill. And so it doesn't happen that often. And then occasionally it does. I forget that our song is in a movie or it's in a trailer or something like that. And it's pretty great. But I don't really ever think that much does it work for for what they're doing. I think the one time that Do You Realize was used in a truck commercial during the Super Bowl. I actually didn't think that worked very well, but I mean, who am I? I mean, I'm not an advertising executive, and they thought it worked pretty well. And so, yeah, who am I? Who am I to say? Yeah.
That's a beautiful choice. So this is going to be the last question.
Okay, here we go. Yeah.
So Logan asked,
So are we at the end of the thing?
we are, yeah.
Oh, good.
We are
Okay.
coming up
All right.
on
Well,
the end of time.
all right.
here.
Yeah.
So,
Well, thank you, whoever's stuck with us. Here's one last one. Yeah.
well, this is, you should show the clouds.
Oh, there we go. Okay, there we go. Oh, let me see. Let me look at this real
Let's,
quick.
pull it out for you. It's in the
I mean,
white one there.
I mean, all this stuff in here is, oh man, this was a fun package to do. That's beautiful. Yeah, that strange blue with the speckles and the splatters of blue within that. It slightly matches this original blue that's on the cover there. What is the other? Oh, they're both blue. There you go. Yep. Well done. Yep. That's beautiful. That is really beautiful. And the labels are beautiful there. I don't think the labels have any song titles on them. That's kind of a Flaming Lips trademark, isn't it? It's kind of a label, but it doesn't tell you what's on it. You have to kind of look at the album cover. I always love this picture of the three of us sitting there and like we're making music, but we're bored at the same time. Stephen in his bare feet, which he's never in bare feet. I mean, that's such a strange thing. It's like I would often look at album covers and think, that's just how those guys live. Look at them. And now I know when we make album covers, it's just a picture. It's not really how we live at all. Stephen and Michael and I would never actually sit on a couch that close together in real life ever. You know what I mean? Dude, your arm is on my butt, but in a picture, it looks great. Yeah. But if you look closely, you can see Stephen looks slightly annoyed and Michael he's bored and I'm just sort of looking away at something. But yeah, for some reason that captured our mood at the time. So yeah. All right. So one last question.
Yeah.
And this stuff is great here too. The sleeves, the print job, the coloring, all that is just nice stuff.
So Logan asked, what are your thoughts on live albums? If you like them, what are some of your favorites? And I know there's a UFOs at the zoo, but is there any plans in the future for a Flaming Lips live album or a release of live recordings?
Well, my feeling about live albums, I don't listen to very many live albums. I think my favorite live album would have been The Who, Live at Leeds or something like that. I probably like Peter Frampton's Frampton Comes Alive. That's a live album, right? Yeah, I'm trying to think of any other ones. I think Echo and the Bunnymen had a something recorded at the Royal Albert Hall. Um, yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'd say for the most part, no. I wouldn't be listening to that many live recordings on purpose, but I've definitely heard some that were amazing. I think that very first Jane's Addiction album, isn't it like a live album or something? Isn't it like a
I
performance?
think it is.
Yeah, and it's utterly amazing. So there definitely are some out there. As far as Flaming Lips go, um, I don't really, I don't think that our any of our live recordings are that great. Um, we try very hard to make sure the audience is in on the recordings. And a lot of people don't do that. A lot of people want it to be a pristine recording and leave the audience out of it. We're trying to always include the audience, and I don't think we've done that very well. But I would say this: the album, the Soft Bulletin uh, recording from Red Rocks that we did in 2016, that was done with the Denver um, Symphony. Um, this one, I think we're quite pleased with this one because just for the nature of what it is, it's got this giant choir at the very back of the stage. So a big orchestra already, 70, 80 pieces there. And this choir that grew and grew and grew. And so by the time we did the show, it was about 60 people in a choir. It's a large ensemble. Um, they were louder in the mixes than we intended them to be. So in the beginning, we thought, well, I don't know if this is going to work. But the more that we played with it, the more we were working on it, the more it became really spectacular. And so, as grandiose and as over the top as the Soft Bulletin is, anyway, this recording that we did at Red Rocks is I think it's just spectacular because it shows this other dynamic with the live choir and the live everybody playing live, and it's slightly urgent, it's slightly rushed, it's slightly slow. It's got all these great things about it, which I wouldn't think would work, but there is a really an energy in it, and we captured the audience. The audience and the Flaming Lips are all that's like another instrument. The audience is one of our great instruments that we want to capture. So I think we finally, for my taste anyway, that we finally have a live recording that I want everybody to go out and listen to as much as they can. The Soft Bulletin that's coming out in November, I think. Yeah.
For
Yeah.
Black Friday.
Yeah.
A couple other things.
All right, here we go.
Is there's a Rhino podcast that's going to be happening soon, talking about Soft Bulletin. You did an interview with him for that.
Oh, I did. You're right. Yeah.
It's coming out here. If
There you
not today, really quick.
Oh, there you go. Okay. Yep. Mhm.
And then you should briefly tell us a little bit about your own podcast, The Sorcerer's Orphan.
Stephen he had talked about the idea of wanting to do a podcast, and we didn't really know what we would make a podcast about, and everybody just suggested, why don't you pick a song and just go through how you wrote it and how you made it and all that sort of stuff. And for me personally, I thought, oh, that just sounds dreadful. But I have to say, sitting there with Stephen and him, him having all these memories and all this technical ability and all this musical ability to talk about a song for 45 minutes, when he's doing it, I have to say it's amazing. So we started to do it as just kind of a way of saying, because we were liking a lot of these music podcasts that we were listening to. But the more that we did it, the more it was even insightful to me. So it's called The Sorcerer's Orphan, and it takes the Flaming Lips, we call it our most iconic songs, or songs that you might recognize the most, but it really doesn't do that. It just picks songs, really. And we sort of talk about anything about it that we feel like kind of is interesting. Sometimes it's the way that we recorded it. Sometimes it's we were trying to do this and it turned into that. But it's really well done. And Stephen is a great storyteller, and he's got a good tone about it. And yeah, it's wonderful. I think the next one, we're working on it right now. The next one is going to feature the song "Do You Realize?" So it's going to be pretty great.
Well, there you go.
Oh, we did it.
I think we're done.
All right. Well, thanks everybody. Thanks for all your questions. Thank you, Vinyl Me Please people, for being so diligent about putting all this together. You did a wonderful job. I love you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Bye.